Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Rob. It's another 5-minute member talk. Today's a special day. It's Monday, the 29th. We're just coming off a brand new announcement from the Department of Licensing in the state of Washington regarding funerals and what we can and can't do with funerals. We'll get into that in a little bit, but first I want to introduce our very special guest. Today we're with Dr. Jason Troyer. Hi, Jason. How you doing today?
Hey, doing great. Doing great. Thanks so much for having me on.
You bet. So, Dr. Troyer or Jason he's a PhD. He has a couple of websites. One though is called jasontroyer.com, and he works with grief. He's done a number of different things. He does have these booklets out called Grief Steps that are available. You can get these actual four are exclusive to a program called aftercare.com. And this is, of course, is not a commercial for either, but if you're interested in some great information, look up aftercare.com. These guys do a wonderful job. But in that packet that you'll receive are these four booklets called Grief Steps. The first step in healing after a loss, surviving holidays after a loss, remembering the loved one lives on, and grieving a year later. Four very great topics. But we wanted Dr. Troyer to come on today to talk with us a little bit about grief and COVID and where we're at in this ever-changing, ever-evolving, ever-fluid world that we've been in for the last 3 or 4 weeks. Jason, I hear a lot of questions from people all the time. I've had multiple phone calls about this. When a person dies, usually family tries to be with them at their death or close by. In this day and age with COVID and quarantines and everything going on, that's just not happening. And now, previous to about 24 hours prior to this recording, we weren't even allowed to have funerals for the people that had passed away. How is that affecting, or how will that, or how do you see that affecting people's grief walk, their walk through the grieving process?
Sure, absolutely. Without question, I mean, the simple answer is it really is going to make it more difficult. We see that in situations when we're not in a crisis situation and people can't be there for their services. We certainly see that in situations where a loved one's body can't be recovered and those sorts of situations. So anytime we're having grief without being able to be present with the deceased, without being able to be around other people who can show support, it's going to make it more difficult, without question. I think, and I know that it's one of those things that funeral professionals see on a daily basis, and they're like, I bet that's true. I haven't seen the scientific study that would say it, but it is true. It is true. And I should also mention that, of course, every situation is going to be different. That doesn't mean that grief and the grieving process can't happen. It doesn't mean that there aren't some things that we can do to really help those folks along. I really do think it is so much better in our modern world, where we have the advantage of social media, electronic communication, video conferencing, those sorts of things. That is just absolutely critical to allow that, because we can do some of those important things like share support, share stories, offer condolences in so much easier fashion and a much more immediate fashion these days. I've just seen, I work with a lot of funeral homes with their Facebook page, and so I see so many all of a sudden saying, okay, now we're gonna go to video on the service, and either on Facebook Live or some other method on our website, and that has just really taken off. And almost entirely, I've seen families be really appreciative of that, and the communities being really appreciative of that. So there's absolutely some things that can happen to facilitate that process, even though we're dealing with imperfect situations. But one thing I really want to emphasize before I forget is that what I'm hearing from funeral directors around the country is they've seen the power of being present for those service. They know that having a lot of people come in under normal conditions and sharing stories and sharing support and remembering is powerful. And so often I'm hearing funeral professionals saying right now, it's like they're disappointed that they're not giving families what they typically would. And my first reaction to that is to funeral professionals and to say, please don't discount what you're able to do right now. It is still incredibly, incredibly important and valuable to that family. I know it's not up to your usual standards. I know it's not ideal circumstances, but caring for that deceased individual with dignity and care, however you're meeting with families, whether it's kind of just maybe one-on-one and in kind of social distancing situations, or even over the phone or video, um, listening to the stories, expressing that compassion, it's still incredibly valuable. So please don't, I know it's not ideal, but please don't discount what you're doing in terms of the power and the ability to provide support. You still are providing such a valuable service. And I know it's hard. I work part-time at a funeral home cemetery. I'm seeing a lot of these things on a day-to-day basis as well. And so please don't discount what you're doing. It's still incredibly important, and thank you for what you're doing. So I just wanted to put that in there before I forgot it there, Rob.
I appreciate that. Yeah, absolutely. Being able to use modern technology. I mean, that's how you and I are talking right now is
Yeah.
through a very similar program. Being able to talk. I'm in Spokane. You are. Where are you at?
Yeah, I'm in a good question. I'm in East Tennessee, just south of Knoxville, Tennessee. If anybody's been to the Smoky Mountain National Park, I'm about 20 miles away from there.
Okay.
And we're fortunate. I think we're in a county of about 130,000. We've only, I think we're up to 6, maybe 7 confirmed cases. And so it's a little bit of a different world than some of the communities there in Washington. I know that. And so, but changes are happening on a daily basis, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, they absolutely are. And like I say, I alluded to it earlier in this talk. Yesterday morning, our Department of Licensing issued a new statement that does now allow for immediate family, which is, of course, a vague topic, uh, very
Yeah.
gray. Uh, Immediate family can attend a funeral at a funeral home or cemetery. It does not say a church or anything like that. It says at a licensed funeral home or cemetery. I think that's going to help people, at least the immediate family. I was receiving calls from people all over the state previous to that saying, I've just lost our 5-month-old child just died,
Oh,
and we can't bury this child. How are we supposed to do this? What are we supposed to do? And I didn't have the answer for it. But it's a very sad state that we're in, but it's something that is ever changing for sure.
mhm.
Um, the folks that weren't able to in about that week time period, and there was a lot of people, but the folks that weren't able to have that service as right then and there, what can we do to help them? What are your thoughts as a psychologist that we can do to help them through this process a little bit and let them know that we're still here and we still care?
Sure. And I do think I know funeral professionals are always busy, and this is no exception, even though you're maybe not having the big events that you're used to hosting and organizing for. I know you're still busy, but I think it's if at all possible, to the find the time and find the resources to maybe kind of go back to a time when maybe you were a little bit smaller and you were able to provide even more individualized care. If there are any opportunities that maybe you've got staff members who are for various reasons, um, you've said we're going to send you home and not have you working at the facility. One thing you can have them doing is, let's go back to checking on these families every 2 or 3 days and giving them a call. Send them home with some stationery and say, here's a list of families. We'll email it out to you. Here's the address. Let's send the cards out, handwritten these days. Now, under normal circumstances, I do have a relationship with aftercare.com and that card system. I think it's a great sort of a thing. And normally, funeral professionals may not have time to do that. But maybe under these circumstances, it's time to go back to kind of old school, handwritten checking on them individually. Those sorts of things is one thing you can do. I know, funeral professionals tend to be so busy, you can't do follow-up calls just to check in with folks and how they're doing. Maybe this is an opportunity where you can share that work and do those sorts of things to kind of help them through that process. Um, Another thing, without question, and this is a little less one-on-one and more community-based, is to share the different ideas that are out there about how do we grieve maybe a little bit more symbolically. Maybe we can help people, do some writing at home. There's some online print offable grief journaling and those sorts of things that can go on, those sorts of things. So if you haven't embraced social media, uh, uh, you know, uh, this is the time to do it. This is the time to get that word out there. I want to briefly mention that it is something, it's a service that I have that I wanted to share with all funeral professionals to hopefully make things a little bit easier. I do offer daily Facebook posts that I do on behalf of funeral homes. I'm offering that completely free, no obligation, no nothing, through June 1st, and really, quite honestly, through this crisis as a way to help out. So if that could help anybody out, they could check things out and get an idea of what I've been posting. Uh, Inspiration, gratitude to various professions out there, those sorts of things. But if they go to jasontroyer.com, they can check out some of the things that I've been posting on behalf of folks. So that's a free service that I'm offering. But most importantly, share those sorts of things, share the resources that folks can be using out there in order to do some of that grief on their own, and then find some creative ways. And maybe you can't sustain that once things get back to normal, but those are some things you can do right here now to be very personal right now.
Well, I guess if you could say that there is a positive from COVID, at least the COVID pandemic, is it has really forced us as funeral providers to move into the next realm, move into the next stage, come up with different ways to honor people. We've had video conferencing for years. We've had all these different options for years, but nobody's ever really done much with them. I mean, a few folks have, and they've had great success with it. But now
Mm-hmm.
we're kind of forced to. We're kind of at this point, we're kind of forced to think outside the box, so to speak, and look at the webcasting and the Facebook Live and the social media and different things like that. I love your idea of if you're working from home, take the stationery and keep in touch. Maybe creating an email chain where that can go out of updates of what's happening at the funeral home, all sorts of different things that people can come up with. Of course, it just takes time and a little bit of ingenuity and a little bit of creativity to come up with these ideas. But I think the biggest thing for all of us is going to be open communication and not trying to what am I trying to say? Not trying to say this is just my idea and so I'm the only one that gets to do it, but actually open it up. I love your idea of sharing your posts, your Facebook posts, free of charge. That's the great content that can go onto a funeral home's Facebook page. So thank you for that.
Sure,
Thank you
I
for that.
appreciate that. Yeah, and I think you're exactly right. I think this has, I think some funeral homes, many funeral homes, maybe the majority of them have been a little bit hesitant to embrace some of that technology. It's like, okay, putting a funeral service on Facebook or broadcasting it on the web some way. What are people going to say about that? And now it's kind of forced us to, like, if we're going to share that, that's about the only way we can do that to a large number of people. And so it creates that excuse to give it a try. People understand why you're doing it, and now you can get the feedback of we are a culture, a population that is spread out, and it's tough to get back to the funerals. We've got even during good times, we have folks who are not able to leave a facility or something like that because of physical limitations or other challenges, and so but they really get a lot out of seeing the service, hearing the music, hearing the words. And so it'll be really interesting to see how many funeral homes decide to stick with some of these changes and certainly make some modifications, but at least make it an option now that they've pulled the Band-Aid off and given it a shot and gotten some feedback from their local community about that.
Well, I think it's definitely consumer-driven ideas that are going to spring us forward in this. For the years I've watched families set up an iPad or an iPhone somewhere, or just any kind of phone, in the back of the chapel because cousin Charlie couldn't make it from Pennsylvania, and this was going direct to cousin Charlie to be there. And what a great idea! Now you can open it up though to the community and it doesn't cost a lot. It sometimes it's even free. So
Yeah.
great way to get that information out there. Um, Jason, you're going to be at our DEF CON 2020 this August, hopefully. Uh,
Yes.
as of right now, we have not postponed our convention, but we're going to have you out as one of our guest speakers. And so um, we're excited to have you come out and be a part of it. Have you been out into Washington before, or is this a first trip for you?
It really is a first trip. I'm originally from Iowa and been in Tennessee for about 15 years, and I think I've been a lot more places east of the Mississippi, but haven't made it all the way out to Washington yet. I'm really excited about coming. I know it's a beautiful state filled with great people, and so I'm really excited about making the trip out there.
Good. Well, we're excited to have you. We're excited to bring you out. I know I was had the fortunate pleasure to hear your topic already back in Chicago this last October, I guess it was, at NFDA, and
Mm-hmm.
great presentation, great topic, and I'm happy to be able to facilitate or help facilitate sharing that with the rest of our state out here. So thank you for agreeing to come out and be with us.
Absolutely, yeah, and that is, dealing with. I'll be honest, I forgot to. I was scheduled to be at a lot of things this spring and summer. I'm coming out to do the diffusing conflict. Is that correct?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
diffusing conflict.
yeah,
Yeah, diffusing conflict in the arrangement room.
yeah.
And what I'm doing is going to be doing is taking lessons from. I am trained as a counseling psychologist and taking some of those lessons from family therapy and working one-on-one with folks and what are some things we can translate into the arrangement conference, but also other funeral home based situations where conflict is coming up. And unfortunately, I hear that everywhere. I was actually able to give a presentation over in England, and they're dealing with the same things. Even of families are more likely to fight and have disagreements throughout that process. So, what are some things we can do to reduce that, kind of nip that in the bud a little bit, and some strategies? There are, spoiler alert, there's no magic wand. If you think I know exactly the answer for no conflict with families, that's not going to happen. But there are some things we can do to reduce that and hopefully bring the family together because they are coming from different places, both physically and maybe kind of emotionally, and with different ideas about what the funeral should look like, and how do we get them on the same page? Because often we've got to, we've got to come down to one decision and all be on the same page. So um, that's what I'm really excited about doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, coming out there.
Well, I've shared that with our committee. That's the advisement committee or the procurement committee, even to put this convention on. And uh, our theme this year is a life well celebrated, and I think that's going to go a long way in celebrating lives. Of it starts at that arrangement conference, and if we can
Hmm.
do that, if we can start the celebration there, it carries over into the gathering, the funeral, the celebration of life, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
It starts at one point, and that one point is in that arrangement conference. So diffusing any tensions and that sort of stuff will definitely help in providing that for sure.
Yeah, and that program I should mention did spring out of the Finding Resilience program, and so um, in terms of helping funeral professionals avoid burnout and feelings and compassion fatigue and those sorts of things, and so um, that's been a great program. And one of the biggest sources of burnout, as I talk to funeral directors across the country, is that family conflict and trying to deal with them in those situations. It's like I sometimes joke with funeral professionals that a lot of people think that the stressful part of your job is dealing with dead icky bodies, and every funeral professional I know says they're not the ones who stress me out. It's the living who give me the stress, so to speak. So
Absolutely.
thankful to the Finding Resilience program, and I should mention they've got free resources as well. That is something sponsored by Homesteaders Life at homesteaderslife.com, and they've got free resources on burnout that might just really be peaking during these times, and
Sure.
so they've got some great free stuff there too.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on here. You certainly have opened up my eyes to some additional ideas of what we can do to still continue to serve families in this ever changing, ever fluid time of known as the COVID pandemic. Um, you brought some great ideas forward, and I hope that we're able to move forward with some of those. And who knows? We'll see where we go from there. Tomorrow is a whole new day, and
Whole new day.
every day seems to be coming with some sort of new challenge that we do. So, if I know some of us would like to get in touch with you later on, how can we do that? Do you have an email you share with
Sure.
me?
Yeah, happy to do that. The website is jasontroyer.com. The email, my direct email, drjasontroyer@gmail.com. And I thank you so much for letting me share that, that I'm providing that free Facebook content through June 1st. No, just trying to help you out. It's not something you have to have any knowledge of at all. It'll just magically appear on your Facebook page. And let's keep those connections between community members going, and kind of share your support and resources to your individual communities. Um, but but before I forget, I'm always, as someone who's kind of 1 foot in the profession but not a licensed funeral director, I'm always constantly amazed with how funeral professionals and funeral directors rise to the challenge, and this is no exception. Thank you from the community's perspective. Thank you so much for all the funeral professionals out there putting yourself in harm's way to serve families. It's just such a critical thing, and I know a lot of people, including myself, really recognize the power of that. So thank everybody out there.
Well, thank you. And just one more time, if you're interested in seeing these booklets, these 4 booklets are exclusive to aftercare.com. Again, this is something I have not talked with aftercare.com, Ellery Bowker, but I'm sure that he wouldn't mind if I plug his product here. It is a great and wonderful product for families.
Yeah.
But in the packet that you get are these 4 booklets that are just wonderful booklets that you've actually written. If we want to get more of those, where can we find more of those booklets that are not exclusive to aftercare, but if we want to put them in our funeral home for families?
Sure, sure. The booklets that you're showing there are part of the aftercare system. So they come along with 4 different cards, and so you can see examples of those at aftercare.com. And Ellery Bowker is the head man over there. He does a great job, and really proud to be affiliated with him. And if there are some booklets, if you're not interested in that sort of system, I do have some longer booklets that are along the same lines, and they can see examples of those at jasontroyer.com. So the couple of different options there.
Excellent.
And
Excellent.
I believe aftercare.com does have a trial as well. So check out their website to look
Yeah,
if you just want to kind of dip your toe in the water. I think they've got a trial you can do as well.
good. Well, again, Dr. Jason Troyer, it's been a real pleasure. I had the opportunity, like I said, and absolutely enjoyed talking with you back in Chicago. I've enjoyed my time with you here, and looking forward to seeing you here in a few months in August. Uh,
Really excited about it.
it's going to be a lot of fun, and we're happy to have you come out. So thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Take care.
All right.